recorded, and it will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow or later tonight. So is there anything else I'm forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting, but we don't have another one coming up, and that's usually what I talk about. So anyway, Jessica, over to you. I'll keep admitting people.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Beth. All right, welcome everyone to our last session of at least this iteration of the Athletes Speaker Series from Athletics Alberta. So I see a lot of names that have been up here every week, and that's really exciting to see. And I also see some new names. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learn tonight about athlete branding and how to tell your story and how to fund your track career, because it's not easy necessarily. And there's a lot of kind of like misconceptions, or no one really knows how to do it. So hopefully we can clear some of that up for you. And we have a panel of absolute superstar athletes, as always, who all have Alberta roots. And they'll be sharing their stories a little bit as well. So got a good hour ahead of us. So our athletes tonight are Amanda, Trevor, and Ryan. So I'll briefly tell you all about them. So Amanda is a 400-meter runner. She's from Edmonton. After losing her arm in an ATV accident in 2015, Amanda turned to sport as her outlet. She is currently the Canadian record holder in the 100, 200, and 400 meters, so I stand corrected. She does all of those, for females with an arm impairment. She made her international debut at the 2019 Para-Pan American Games, where she placed 6th in the 400 meter. She went on to compete at the 2019 World Para Athletic Championships in Dubai. Her goal is to compete at the Tokyo 2021 Paralympic Games this summer and to continue inspiring others to live an active lifestyle. Our second athlete is Trevor Hoffbauer. Everyone knows who Trevor is in Alberta. He's our local hero. Trevor is one of the very few athletes from Canada who's currently qualified for the Tokyo 2021 Games in the marathon. He won the Canadian Marathon Trials, I guess, almost a year and a half ago now. So he is 100% Tokyo bound, which very few other people can say. He's a 3-time national champion, and he is sponsored by Saucony and, is it Morten? I never know how to say it. Morten, okay.
Yeah.
That's a gel company, right? Electrolytes and drinks?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then last joining us is Ryan Russell. So Ryan no longer competes in track, but he was a star back in my day. We grew up together. He ran the 800 and also cross country, so he had some range. His PB in the 800 is 151.18. He was the junior national silver medalist in the 800 in 2007, so 100 years ago. Still sitting on those laurels. Just kidding. Ryan was a stud back in my time.
Forever.
An 11-time Athletics Alberta provincial champion. He was the 2007 Alberta Junior Cross Country Athlete of the Year, 7-time high school Alberta champ. So great range in cross country in the 800. He's the University of Calgary 4x800 meter record holder. Well, one of 4. So he's done a lot in his career. Ryan raced cross country and track competitively from 2002 to 2012, focusing on the middle distance and cross country. Over this time, he competed across North America and in the CIS, which is now U Sport, and spent 3 seasons as a sponsored athlete by a top global athletic brand. Ryan transformed his love for the sport into a career with New Balance in early 2013 after spending his high school and varsity years working in running retail. So he worked at a few running stores like many of you probably do. He manages New Balance's independent wholesale sales and marketing for Alberta and supports national key account business and executes countrywide staff training for the brand. He loves his dogs and afternoons at Glenmore Track, racing his own shadow. So I am really excited about this panel because we've got 2 current athletes who have great stories, and we have an ex-athlete who now works on the corporate side. So we've got some good perspectives here.
The term athlete just loosely applying to me. Thank you, though.
So yeah, what I really want to get out of this is we all know track isn't free. We all have to pay for gear, travel, coaching somehow. And a lot of athletes, I think that sponsorships are just handed to you. That's just what happens. You get fast, and then you show up, and then all of a sudden Nike's knocking on your door. And that happens sometimes, but not all the time. They do come with a lot of intention and a lot of work. And so we're here to myth bust for you and tell you all about it. All right. So what we always like to do on these is start from the beginning, and I'd like you guys to all share how you got into track. Just lay down the the basic story. Tell us about your career so far, if it's over, what it was like, and what you're working towards right now. So why don't we start with you, Trevor?
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I started a little bit later than most people. I played basketball from the age of 5 to 20 at a competitive level through high school. And I used cross country in high school as like basically complementary cross training towards the basketball season. So I was like decent at it, but I wasn't the greatest, and I just didn't really care about it too much. So it was just like kind of a side hobby. And then after basketball was done and I graduated high school, played golf for a year and just didn't really see a career there. And then I joined up with Jamie Grant and the State Trojans and their cross country program. And Jamie did a good job kind of letting a fire under my butt. And I really enjoyed running at that time. So I got into road racing right off the bat. I didn't really like running on the track. It's just, for me, it's like, I don't like running in circles. The view never changes. So I stuck to the road and it's worked out so far. So I started out at 119 for a half and worked my way down to 103, 36 for the 10K and down to 29 mid now. And started at 218 and worked my way down to 209 for the marathon. So pretty good progression, and yeah, it's been a good story so far.
Yeah, man, you probably ate a whole dozen bananas by the time, like your current self versus your former self in those time progressions.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Amanda? We kind of whipped through your story, but can you elaborate a bit?
Yeah, of course. So it was a week before my 18th birthday when I got into an ATV accident. And at that time, I had paralyzed my arm and we didn't really know what the outcome was going to be. And then it turned out that through all of my surgeries and physio, I could never regain mobility or sensation. So then at 21 years old in 2018, I made the decision to amputate my arm. I was tired of the paralyzed flail arm. I found that it held me back in a lot of ways. So that's where we're at now. And yeah, I love my nub. It was the best decision I ever made advocating for myself. But going back in time, the accident was 2015. And then I found track in September of 2017. I was, how old would I have been? I don't know. I was old for getting into the sport. And I started at the University of Alberta through a para program. We're a super diverse group. We have people with physical impairments and mental impairments. And yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. With para, there's obviously less people running in Canada who have an arm impairment. So yes, you still need skill, but if you're willing to be committed, you can make it to the top quicker than you ever would an able-bodied. So yeah, in those 3 short years, I've come a long way in track. And yeah, like you said, I used to run the 100 and the 200, but I just wasn't fast enough. So I went up to the 400, and yeah, I use sport as my outlet. It's helped me so much with my recovery, just being physically active, and obviously like my mental state as well. It's just made me such a happy, positive person. And I'm grateful for so many opportunities that have come from it.
Yeah. And Amanda, you kind of downplayed the hard work you've done. You said para is not as deep as maybe able-bodied, and so it's easier to rise to the top. But I first met Amanda at a training camp in Phoenix, and I think she was working harder than I was. Like in bed earlier for sure, eating very healthy, certainly absolutely killing herself on the track. So this girl works hard.
That is always my thing. Bed at like 9:15. I go to bed so early.
Yeah. And how about you, Ryan? Fill us in about your career.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the inverse of those two. I started young, probably about 13, 14, and had a great kind of age group career all the way up to through university and stuff like that. And then kind of finishing university, moving on into the senior category and stuff, I think my priorities changed a little bit, and I kind of pursued my career more than my track career. But yeah, like there was plenty of clubs around the city growing up, and I bounced around, tried a few of them, and just fell on the 800 and cross country for some reason. But was able to transition from that into a career that I desperately wanted to be in the running industry. So no complaints.
Cool. Kind of segued really well into what you're doing with the rest of your life, which is very cool. So Amanda and Trevor, you're both eagerly preparing for Tokyo 2021. So how's it going? What's next for you? How have you dealt with COVID? Just fill us in on the burning question that we all have. How are you doing? We'll start with you, Trevor.
Pretty good. Yeah, I used this last year as an opportunity to just get a little bit stronger, to really get focused in and dialed in. I found that there was a little bit of, it was a little overwhelming after Toronto in 2019. So Toronto took place October 2019, and then we transitioned into the new year, and trying to get prepared for the Olympics throughout January, February, and beginning of March. There's a lot of communication and just stuff starting to happen. And I definitely would have been overwhelmed going into Tokyo last summer. So I am thankful that it was pushed back a year, because it's allowed everything to just kind of settle, and you're able to prepare a little bit more. So right now I was in Vancouver for the winter, because it's a little bit nicer than our winters, even though this winter's been really nice in Calgary, and training's been going well. I'm just on a scheduled off break right now, and should be ramping things up shortly and getting ready for the big show.
Great. Sounds like it's given you the gift of having no regrets in your prep, which is pretty cool. Yeah. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with Trevor. There was some positives that came out of the postponement of the 2020 games. I was so new to track. It was my third season, only my second year of ever running the 400 meter. So yeah, I used it as a time to get stronger, faster, and just close that gap between me and the top girls in the world. And yeah, I also went out west, as Trevor did. I went out to Victoria for 3 months. Back in beginning of December, we lost all indoor facility access at the Butterdome. So I was not looking forward to being on a spin bike for months. My heart goes out to people who have had to do that this winter. I'm sure that that's very tough, to do all that cross training. But yeah, I went out to Victoria for a few months and got in really amazing training. I got to race 3 times in a month and a half, which is after a year and a half of not racing.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, it was amazing. I ran some PBs there. So yeah, I'm excited. It's I got in great training in Victoria, and now I'm here for a few weeks, and then I'm going down to the States in 2 weeks to do some racing in the heat, because obviously that's great for sprinters. So I'm going to go down to California and Texas. Obviously be as safe as possible. It's not ideal with COVID to be traveling right now, but we found out last week that the female team for Tokyo, for the Paralympics for Athletics Canada, will only be 5 females, which is super small. So yeah, I've got to get a lot faster in order to qualify.
Gotcha. Well, you've got a plan.
Yes.
So it's step 1. So Ryan, we've talked before on these chats about transitioning from being an athlete into a regular person, dare I say? Basically when your athlete career ends and you move on. So you've done that, obviously. You're working in the shoe industry now. How was that?
Yeah, the transition's interesting, as you may expect, getting your evenings and weekends back. It's amazing how you can just waste those. But transitioning into the industry that I'm in now, it was awesome. I think it's it's finding a place where kind of your passions and things that you grew up doing. For me, it was track, obviously. That I could transition into a place where that could become kind of my work, my career, and things I talk about every day. Was pretty cool. And it was kind of really cool to see the ways to do it. Even now I can see, and I talk to people about it all the time, how many different ways you can kind of find your way into different industries, or find your way from one passion into an industry. And I think that, the networks, the community support and things like that were all so helpful for me. And it gave me a lot of confidence. And that was kind of my own personal brand, was kind of navigating from running into work with with a running shoe company.
Cool. Do you ever still hit the track? Is that ancient history?
Tuesday night with you.
That was a planted question.
Yeah, so I'll go and train around the Spartans on Tuesdays and Thursday nights.
So still getting your feet wet. You're not done with track by any means.
Never.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense if you're in the industry to still see people who are using product, like still stay connected.
Truly, I think it's really important, especially to see kind of the younger generations of people, and especially for the brand that I'm with, to kind of see their adoption. And I think it's really cool and a lot of good feedback.
Cool. So Trevor, speaking of brands, you recently announced that you signed a multi-year deal with Saucony, which sounded like a really big deal. Can you take us through all of that? What was the process like? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so last year I just stayed unsponsored, and I just tried out some other shoes, and I was just waiting for somebody to come to me. I thought that I had run a pretty respectable time, and I wasn't in any position, or I just really didn't get the wheels turning that much last year. So I talked in saying that, I did talk with a brand in March, and that was like right before COVID, and then COVID hit and they're like, oh yeah, we can't. So that's kind of the way it went. And then throughout the summer, I talked with a European brand and had a little bit of traction there. And then things kind of fell through. And then I was talking with Saucony at the same time, and there was definitely some mutual interest there, and it just worked out. So the process was really easy from my end of things. We just had 2 conversations, just bounced numbers back and forth. They sent me kind of a proposal. I accepted, and yeah, it worked out well. So I think that like the way that our values kind of lined up, and our community engagement, and what we see in ourselves as like me as an athlete, and what they see in themselves as a brand, like what I can bring to the table for them and what they can bring to the table for me, it just made sense. So I was really happy and proud to sign that contract with them.
That's awesome. That sounds so seamless. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of like the best case scenario of how it could go. If they show up, they ask you, do you want this? And you say, sure.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Amanda? Do you have any current sponsors?
Yeah, I have a few, not any as big as Trevor, but I'm not signed or anything by New Balance, but I have a great contact who, when I reach out to her, she'll send me clothes and shoes, which I'm just like, I'm so happy with it, because I've never been to the Paralympics yet. So I think it's important to know where you stand. And I don't know if I've earned my spot yet for a multi-year shoe deal. So to have this partnership with New Balance, where they send me a few shoes every couple months whenever I need them, that's really great, and I'm really happy with that. And then another bonus is there's no requirement for social media posts, which is a huge part of today's sponsorship world, and some of them are like crazy, right? Like they'll be 10 times a week they want you posting on Instagram. Yeah. And yeah, New Balance is just super chill. They've never asked for me to post anything. Of course I do when I feel like it, but yeah, so that I have that. And then Noon electrolytes, which I don't know if you guys use them, but they're awesome. And to get sponsored by a company that you use daily is such a great thing, because it just offsets that expense, right? So now I no longer need to buy those electrolyte tablets. And as an athlete, there's so many expenses and things add up. So that's something I don't have to purchase anymore. I'm an RBC Olympian, so that one's a good one as well. It's financial benefits. And then in return, I do speaking engagements for them or community events. And that was a 2-year contract. And yeah, those are kind of the main ones that I'm a part of.
Cool. Those are really solid. I'm also part of the Noon squad, and I agree. It's really smart when you're searching for companies to partner with to find something that fits in your life and makes sense. I can't tell you how many times I've been reached out to on Instagram, and I'm sure you guys are the same, of like, oh, do you want to promote this and that and this and that? And it's like, well, I don't really use CBD, and I don't really want to buy these rando tights from you that look like they're very cheap and made in someone's basement, and like, no, this doesn't really fit. So I think that's a really good point of making sure that your partnerships fit in with your life and make sense and are authentic.
Yeah, and I've also, yeah, same thing, Jess. Like I've had people send me leggings before, and yeah, now I just say no because it's waste. And if I'm not going to wear them, they don't need to send them to me. So I think, yeah, it's important to say yes to things that actually align with your morals and your brand image, and something that you guys can both benefit from.
Totally. Trevor, you also spoke that you have a sponsorship with Morton.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying it properly. How did that come about?
Yeah. No, I mean, to just like slide them under the rug. I've been sponsored by Morton for about a year and a half now. I reached out to them and used some of my network contacts to get in touch with them. And it worked out. So my sponsorship is very much like you and Amanda with Noon. It is product only, and Morton is a smaller company. I think they originated in like 2017, and they're based out of Sweden. So definitely a lot of room for growth, but they sponsor some big athletes like Eliud Kipchoge and the world's best marathoners. So it works well. And like, to your point, something that you use every day, it goes such a long way. Cool. Yeah, totally. Have either of you guys ever been rejected when you've asked for sponsorship? What's that been like? Yeah. You can go, Amanda, if you have one.
Yeah, I've gotten rejected so many times. Not too many times to my face, though. Mostly they've been through email. But yeah, I have, we can get into this later, but like my running resume and the letter I'll send off when I want something. And yeah, you either just don't hear back or I'm told no. And that's fine. I mean, you move on, you try another thing. Even something like Gooder sunglasses, they're like a really popular running sunglass right now. They sent me like one pair, and then I wanted to try out this other style, and I asked and they said no, but I was like, whatever, I got one pair of glasses. That's good enough. And yeah, I think you just have to put yourself out there is like the most important thing. Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you don't put yourself out there and market yourself and take these risks and be vulnerable and ask, yes, some people come to Trevor, but a lot of sponsors don't come to me. So I have no other option than to ask.
Yeah, and I don't have like a lot of people coming to me at all. I was just kind of waiting to see if anything happens. But like my experience has been the exact same as yours, where you just like inquire and people will either not reply or they'll say no, and it's like a polite no. 100%. And I mean, I'm not on the panel, so I don't want to blab too much, but in my experience, I mean, I get a lot of no's too. Occasionally I've swung out and I've got a yes on things that I'm like, oh, okay, great. Sure. It's literally the ask and you shall receive type situation. But one mistake I used to make is I tied a lot of my ego with sponsorship, where I thought, surely if I ran this time, surely if I made worlds multiple times, or if I was an Olympian or this or that, the sponsorships would come, like Trevor's experience. And they didn't necessarily, or the ones that I thought would didn't. And that made me kind of think, well, what's wrong with me? Am I not fast enough? Am I not smart enough? Am I not charismatic enough? Am I not pretty enough? Those are the things that go through your head sometimes when you're rejected. But over time, I've come to realize that sponsorship is literally a business transaction. So you don't always fit into what a company is looking for to make a profit, because that is truly their MO. And so there's nothing personal about that. It's just not a fit. And so these rejections are nothing personal. It's just, that's not who we had in mind for this one thing. All right. So Amanda, you mentioned that you send an athletic resume or a cover letter to companies. So when you're reaching out, what do you typically say?
Yeah, so I have both a running resume, which you got to like talk yourself up. And I feel as athletes, sometimes we're embarrassed to do this, but you got to brag about your accomplishments and the teams you've made, your times, everything. So yeah, I have some amazing action shots in there, and then my times and the teams I've made, and a little bit about my story. Obviously, losing my arm and going through what I went through, it gives me like that unique perspective and unique story that sometimes sponsors like to grasp onto. And yeah, so I have the running resume, and then I also have like a sponsorship letter, which is probably a little more professional than my running resume. And it says, yeah, like I clearly state what I want, if it's product or financial aid or whatever it is. And then I include what I can give to the company in return. And yeah, mostly I send those through email. When COVID stops, I would love to meet people face to face, because I feel they could get a stronger sense of who I am as a person and a better sense of my personality. But yeah, right now I'm mostly sending out the emails.
Cool. Do you do something similar, Trevor? Do you have a resume, a cover letter, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I created like an 8-page package that I sent out, and that was definitely more attractive than just like a regular resume, because inside that is basically a resume with your athletic achievement, your community engagement, your social profile, and really detailing that out. And then also just your asks and your desires as well, and like what you can bring to the table for the brand themselves. And I found that like in my negotiations with specific brands, like I do my research on those brands. I check out their direction, not only like as a brand, but also their community engagement, because that's huge, and also their social media interaction. So if you can take a look at their mission, anything about them as a brand, and kind of match your values with their values, that will ensure that you have a good fit. And you just don't want to be like, you just don't want to be sending out resumes to everybody, because that's going to devalue yourself. So be very specific in who you reach out to, and make sure that both values align. They'll probably yield the best result for whatever you're asking.
Totally. Ryan, I mean, I know that your job is not to select athletes to sponsor necessarily, but have you ever been on the receiving end of this? Or more so, you have a good eye for what is kind of up and coming in trends and branding and whatnot. I know you're working on some marketing classes and stuff. What can an athlete do to make themselves appealing to a sponsor? What are you guys sort of looking for?
Yeah, like I can say what Amanda and Trevor said, that's kind of like, it's awesome. It's good to be, specific. It's really good to be transparent. It's very important that your values kind of line up with the brand that you're pursuing as well. Because I think more than ever, the kind of career ambassador, blanking an Adidas product and then a Lulu product, et cetera, it's obvious, and it's inauthentic. So I think, yeah, being transparent, specific, kind of having that like humble brag mentality. I like that, because it is hard, but I love what Trevor said, like kind of that like clean, bigger package that's like real and kind of involves everything. I mean, yeah, those things are big. So I've seen certain things, and I know even just I was speaking with a kind of partner on the team today who does the picking of who's on the team, and he did indicate the things that are important, and a lot of it's like clearly the brand wants to be loyal to the athlete the same way that the athlete wants that in return. So I think that's really important. I think that the messaging and things like that are important, but I also feel as though your resume is your social network at this point. Like, not that you have to leverage or kind of abuse your social network, but like your Instagram, I'm not even going to say Facebook, your Instagram, that illustrates a lot about you. And I think people can tell a lot just from your aesthetic and kind of the story, the daily storytelling that you do. So
that's really good advice, the social media. Let's talk a bit more about that. Amanda and Trevor, do you tweak your social medias? Are you cognizant of trying to attract certain attention on your social media? What's your strategy behind that?
Do you want to go first, Trevor?
Sure. Yeah, my strategy, I don't have too much of one with my social media. I try and focus more on community engagement and physical performance results. But when it does come to my social media, I focus more attention onto Instagram. Facebook's not even a thing, so I don't even put attention there. And Twitter is, I don't know, Twitter is weird because you just have like all this junk, but then you actually have like some value in there. So it's like kind of weird, but most focus is Instagram, and I try and do once a month a running post. Once a month, I dabble in photography as a hobby, so I try and take cool landscape photos, and sure, one of each per month, basically, and then anything that I can do to kind of drive attention to the brand that I'm representing through stories and just through my daily life, things that can inspire others. I try and do that through stories.
You've talked about community engagement a little bit. What can you define that? Like, are you coaching? Are you speaking? What does that mean?
Yeah. I am part of the Calgary Spartans, so I try to pop by practice as much as I can and try and just be a cheerleader, be a mentor, be somebody who the athletes can just kind of piggyback on and chat things out if there's ever issues on the field. Because it's great to have coaches out there, but it's also great to have a second set of eyes or just somebody to cheer you on. I think there's a lot of value there. So that's what I do with the Spartans, and I do coach 5 athletes as well, 4 athletes. And yeah, just appearances in the community as well. It's kind of hard with COVID right now because you can't go to events. You can't just like pop down to your local running store and do what you did before. So that part is kind of lacking, but that'll come back in time. And also like appearances at races. Without races, without events, it's like, yeah, it's kind of tough. It's all social media focused right now.
Yeah, a little harder. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean by just being around. I mean, when I was a young track buck, Melindy Elmore was coached by my coach, Mike Van Tighem, and she was with ASICS at the time because this was the first half of her track career. And she was the biggest rock star I'd ever seen in my life. And so I bought ASICS shoes I was sponsored by ASICS. They're all I wore for the first like 7 or 8 years of my career because she did, and she was my hero. So that makes perfect sense. How about you, Amanda? What strategy do you put into your social media?
Yeah, I think, it's more important than ever. It's what you are showing to the world, how you present yourself, and you got to be smart about it. I didn't post like stupid stuff before I was an athlete, but probably not the most marketable stuff. So I'm definitely more aware nowadays what I'm posting on there. And I don't use Twitter. I have no idea I've never made a tweet. I don't even know how to use it. So I'm definitely not on there. I deleted Facebook off my phone. So Instagram's the main one. And I would like to post at least once a month a track photo, but it's sometimes so much time will go by and I'll be like, oh, I need to post. But I think it's about finding that balance of not posting too frequently that people just scroll past or they skip your Instagram stories. You don't want to flood people's pages. It's annoying. They'll unfollow you. It just doesn't look good. So I definitely try to post, a couple times a month, different stuff, track photos, and then also just showing my personality through the post. So like adding a bit of humor and not keeping things dry or boring.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of things that come up in our like media training and stuff is you need to learn how to tell your story. and that's what attracts people to like cheer for you or support you or want to sponsor you or just like realize that you're not just a running robot. And sounds like you guys are both using social media very authentically in a way to tell who Trevor the person is who's also a runner, and Amanda the person is who's also a very fast runner. It's a tool to communicate who you are to people that you don't necessarily know on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think I'll add just that. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt you, Ren?
No, you go.
I was just going to say that I use it also to like show my arm off and to inspire people and to motivate others. So many other para athletes follow me, and I've never been like ashamed to take advantage of my nub and my arm and use it for the benefit. And I use it to get stuff, not to get stuff, but just to like market myself. And I have a great story, and I like to use it. So my goal is for one day to be a New Balance athlete, because they have BOA spikes. I don't know if you guys, they have like, BOA is a technology. There's like snowshoes, cycling spikes, but track spikes where, oh, he's gonna go grab them. Anyway, my racing spikes have no shoelaces, which is obviously very accessible for somebody with one arm. And Nike just came out with a pair of shoes, running shoes that are slip on. Yeah, those are my training spikes.
That's unreal. That's so cool. Look at this.
And the independence that those shoes gave me is huge. I obviously can't tie laces like super fast or tight. So yeah, push the button and it's accessible. And I think that there's a potential for something to come of that in the future. And I would love for that to happen one day, because I think para athletes need to start gaining more visibility in the sponsorship world.
100%. Like, that's just part of you. That is your story. And so nothing's more authentic than that. That's awesome. Brian, do you have any thoughts? Okay. Two thoughts.
Well, one, I think both of their social, like both Amanda and Trevor's kind of social, just the way that they show themselves on social media, like I think they're very unique but like so effective, it's crazy. Like I think Amanda's cool because it's like it's funny, it's very authentic, and it's clever. And I'm with you on the BOA thing. I can't even stress like how many times I've said that in the last couple of days. Just be like, it's a product that's not steeped in ableism, and I think it's really cool that it kind of lines up with you. And I think again, I love your social media. And then Trevor, on the other hand, he's really good at managing his story, and I think we all know Trevor's story of like underdog, humble, like growth, and like just achieving crazy things, and will continue to. And he's done that without over leveraging his social media. And I think those things are just so valuable. So it's cool that they both are very authentic. And I think that's truly what brands are looking for.
Exactly. And there's nothing cringy about telling your own story.
Not at all. Humble brag.
Exactly. So Ryan, how has COVID changed the sponsorship landscape? Is anything different than it has been in the past?
It's tough to say, because I mean, you would anticipate that there would be less opportunities based on the lack of events and things like that, and even Amanda and Trevor will have better kind of learned experiences with that. But I feel as though there's probably a bigger opportunity that's come from this, which is the digitization of everything. So regional athletes are still hugely important, maybe more than ever, especially because now everything's digital. So, you know, my community in Calgary, I almost only get to interact with through Instagram and things like that. So I think there's quite a few opportunities for people who, you know, can execute, are comfortable in front of the camera and things like that. I think times, you know, running fast, being a high achiever is obviously important, but I think there's a new aspect that some people will take advantage of to gain more opportunities. And I think it's definitely, you know, content creation and things like that. Become a resource for the brand and things like that. Probably an easy way to leverage your way into future sponsorships.
Totally. You guys, sorry, I lost my line that I was reading. What is often required from athletes by sponsors? Are you just given free stuff? Like that's I think maybe sometimes how it looks, but what are typically asked of you? Trevor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it depends on your agreement with that brand. So I think this could be agreed upon that there's 3 different tiers to sponsorships. There's your ambassador, there's your sponsored athlete who gets product, and then there's your sponsored athlete who gets paid plus product and all that other stuff. With ambassadorships, yeah, that's probably more of kind of an influencer type agreement where you're going to be leveraged more on social media in return for product to either a discount or free. And then your sponsored athlete is somebody who is kind of up and coming, or somebody who's making their way on the national scene, or for whatever reason, I don't know, you can't really speak on the company's behalf, but a lot of companies will just sponsor athletes through product. And that could be a blend of social media engagement, that could be performance, that could be community engagement. And then you have that high tier athlete who is just like told to do it all. And you basically sell yourself to the brand and you're at their demise. But it's a good demise because, of course, you did your research and came together with values. So it's a good demise.
Totally. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I think they kind of said it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryan?
I mean, yeah, that was kind of my experience. I was kind of a product sponsored athlete when I was, and partially was because of just even I was working in a run specialty store at the time, and just my influence in that small setting was kind of enough for it. But knowing that I haven't experienced it on the greater scale as Trevor has, I do think that it's important, yeah, to know that as long as your values are lined up, that it's not really a worry.
Totally. Ryan, where do you see the future of sponsorship heading?
Great question. I think you do notice obviously big, massive trickle down sponsorships. For example, that's like Kawhi Leonard and things like that. But I also do anticipate quite a bit of regional sponsorship growth, more likely in the product phase of things. But I do think that now regional sponsorship we're probably going to start to see more of, because there is a demand for this kind of real life, local, near to home experience versus kind of, big campaigns shot in California. So again, I think it's digital, and I think it's going to be a lot from the like video creation side of things. And again, people who just are on top of social platforms and how they change, right? Because even Instagram just changed. I think everyone's got to make reels now.
Oh man.
That looks like a lot of work. I need to hire a high schooler to teach me. Yeah. We're going to shift to some audience questions, but do you guys have anything else to add on this?
Yeah, to Ryan's point there with sponsorship, like sponsorship definitely went away when COVID hit, but now that everything's starting to kind of shift back to some sort of normality, and you kind of take a look at like the Calgary housing market, it dove down hard and now it's coming back like full steam. I think that's going to happen with travel and tourism, hospitality, those industries that are just decimated are going to come back even stronger. And one of those industry is the event industry. So once events start coming back in, there's going to be so many eyes out there. There is already, well, I don't think a study has been done, but just by my gut feeling, I think there's a bit of a running boom happening because everybody's getting outdoors now. So people are going to be registering for races. I think it's just going to be gangbusters. So once you see more money getting thrown into, or money generated by events and companies making more, that will hopefully open up the door for more sponsorship as well.
Totally. Like it's a really exciting time to be a runner because all our friends and family can now relate to us for maybe the first time ever, and B, it's so fun being on the pathways and seeing all these new people embracing it. And so what once was a very solitary activity isn't so much anymore. It's cool. Anyone else have anything else to add before we jump into the questions? All right. So the first one from a coach is, can you touch on the importance of appropriateness as it pertains to future sponsorship university work when posting to social media? So I'm not sure what he means by appropriateness, but I would think maybe professionalism.
Yeah, and I think I kind of touched on this earlier about how I started becoming more aware of it once I became an athlete. But yeah, you hear it all the time. When you put something out on the internet, it's there forever. So you just got to be smart about it. And yeah, no drinking videos, none of that crazy stuff. It's not smart. And yeah, you hear so many horror stories about stuff that comes back to haunt people 5 or 10 years down the road. So yeah, just got to be smart with what you're putting out there.
Internet's forever. It's scary. All right. This one's a really interesting one. What do you look for in a brand when you're choosing who to reach out for? When you're choosing who to reach out to for sponsorship inquiries, what do you guys as athletes look for? we've kind of painted this so much so far as beggars can't be choosers, but that's not really true. Like I think every athlete has to know their value. So what are the things in companies that you're looking for?
I think one of the things that I closely align with is like zero waste and minimalist. So stuff like that is really important to me. So I like, I forget if Trevor or Ryan mentioned this, but looking at like the mission and values on their website, every company website will have it, and seeing how they're giving back to the environment, how they're giving back to the community is really important. And I think also you don't always need to be looking for a company that provides a product, but also services are really great as well. I get discounts for physio and chiro and massage, which is amazing because obviously as an athlete, I'm getting treatment all the time. And then also I love yoga. I go at least 3 times a week, and my local studio here in Edmonton sponsored me, which was amazing. And I was so happy to get that partnership because I like spreading the word of how important yoga is for like rehab for an athlete. So I don't think you always need to be looking for products, but services as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, to Amanda's point there, I also looked at sustainability, and Saucony is one of those companies that is working towards being sustainable and planet friendly. So they use recycled polyester and nylon in most of their apparel products, and they just came out with a lifestyle shoe that is made out of natural materials. And the direction that they're going is kind of cool. So that's just one thing that I looked at as well. But yeah, it's just a matter of like really taking a look at yourself as a person, what you bring to the table, what the company brings to the table, what their values are, and how you can kind of blend and integrate that.
Yeah, and I think I'd also add reaching out to like local companies and services is huge too, because you're a local Calgary athlete or I'm a local Edmonton athlete. And I think they're more inclined to want to support local athletes just as much as I would like to work with an up and coming local business that's close to home.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Like, don't go throwing off your contract to like $1 billion company right off the bat when you're just fresh out of school. Like, just like a job, you kind of work your way up.
Yeah, and something we haven't even touched on is approaching really big corporations. A lot of them have money for community service and outreach and stuff like that, and that's another place where a pitch deck and an athletic resume and whatnot can go really far if you're approaching like one of those really, really large companies, because they do sponsorship programs and projects all the time. So if you're willing to lead a run club or do some public speaking or something like that, I've seen athletes be very successful with that if they have connections. All right, and guys, you're welcome to pop more questions in the chat if you can think of anything. Here's a good one. When you're reading through a contract, what do you look for? It's kind of related, I guess.
I feel like Trevor probably has more experience with contracts than I do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of the contracts that I've signed, we've already like verbally discussed beforehand. So nothing like really surprises me, but it's just making sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And like signing off a contract is not like agreeing to terms and conditions when you're updating your Apple account. So nothing should come out as a surprise or be locked into fine print that is going to haunt you. So I don't think it's like as scary as some people might think it might be.
Totally.
I have a question for you guys. At what point would you recommend that athletes reach out for an agent instead of doing the sponsorship, working for the sponsorships on their own?
Do you want to take it, Trevor, or I can, or we both can?
That's all you, because you got an agent.
Yeah, so I work with an agent, and I think it's been good and bad, because some of the agent that I've worked with is Ray Flynn. So he's if you're in track and field, he's a very well-known, like, super agent. He represents a ton of athletes, which is good because he has all the connections you could want. But I'm very low on his totem pole of athletes, especially with my perpetual injuries. So there have been times where I probably could have done something easier or more efficient because I am type A and I can send emails and that's not stressful to me. I'm happy to organize my own travel and stuff like that. The reason why I keep working with him is because so agents in track and field do two main things. They get you contracts, ideally, with bigger companies, where they help facilitate that process. You don't need one because Trevor does not work with one, and he chose not to. He could if he wanted. And they get you into really big races. And so because I'm a track athlete, maybe this is a fear that's not real, but I have really enjoyed working with Ray because he has so much pull. And so he's been able to get me into a lot of Diamond League races that I probably wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And to me, my favorite part of track is racing and racing in these huge races. I just like, that is it for me. There's nothing I love more than being at a big international race in a big stadium, because that to me is the dream. And so I trust that he is good at getting me on these start lines. Therefore, I don't mind that maybe it's sort of annoying that I could have negotiated something myself, or an agent will also always take a cut of your prize money and your sponsorships. And so that's how they're paid. So to me, that's worth it because I want to be in these Diamond League races.
Yeah, and I always forget that portion of it because para, we don't have that in para world. So I always forget the agents get you guys into those big races.
Yeah, but there are different types of agents too. So he is like very much a track and field agent. There are also straight up marketing agents, and there are a lot of Canadian companies like Sport Brand and Manifesto, I think is what it's called, and they do strictly marketing. So they would connect athletes with like the Cheerios ad and stuff like that. And so that's a whole different sector. So some athletes will even have two agents. They'll have like a marketing agent who does those fun projects, and then a track agent to get them into races. The intricacies of the pro world.
So how were you introduced to Ray, and like what kind of spurred you on to be represented by an agent?
So I was pretty naive. I didn't really know how it worked. But Ray had represented Melindy, and he's very well known. So I reached out to a few other people who he represented to ask, like, is he legit? Is he slimy? Which he's not. And like, I just didn't really know the world at all. So I definitely reached out to people that he was currently working with to get more intel. He reached out to me after I ran in the Melrose Games one year, which is a really big indoor track meet in New York. I actually reached out to Cam Levins, who he represents, to help me to get into the race because I emailed the wrong person to try and get in. Like the email was just sitting in my draft box. And so I thought that he hadn't replied to me because Ray is the meet director for that meet. And Cam was like, oh, no problem. I'll just like shoot him a message. And so then he clued in that like, oh, Jess is like fairly quick. This was like the height of my career, but clearly is not represented by an agent if she's emailing me. So maybe there's some opportunity here. So it was a bit serendipitous. I didn't reach out to a ton of people. Okay, and here is another question. Might be our last because I have a few closing things to say. How does track and field help me in life? So I'll let you guys mull this over. The context is this athlete, who I assume is younger, said they go to their practices, they're feeling a little bit unmotivated, they're not sure, like, why are they doing this? How does this translate to future success in life? So I guess, what have you learned from track?
Do you want to go first, Brian?
Yeah, sure. I feel like so many important things, but mainly it is the resilience, just like knowing that you can grind through things, knowing that you can work really hard towards something and achieve a goal. And when you achieve that goal, the amazing feeling, the return on that investment, and how good it feels. I've learned so much from track, and obviously it's the only reason I'm where I am today, and I'm definitely thankful for all the things, but also noting that track's also got this really like beautiful community where everybody's pretty uplifting of one another. And I think that network is what's going to help drive you to wherever you want to go, and you can get into it anytime. Like Trevor and Amanda getting into it later. Like that's actually when I first met Trevor was on the start line of a road race. And he was like, "Oh, cool shoes." And just like, you could, that sweet Trevor, just like, it was awesome, and we worked together after that. It was just like, those types of relationships you form in the track community, I think are great. So don't take them for granted.
How about you, Trevor?
Yeah, running to me is a little bit spiritual. I find that it allows me to connect to different parts of my life that I don't have. Running also allows me to just get into like a very meditative state. So it allows me to problem solve a little bit better. It allows me to reflect on things a little bit better. It just really calms me down, and it's really fulfilling. I also just have this pure drive to be the best version of myself at what I do. And that's why I have such high expectations for myself. So I wanted to be like a professional athlete when I was young in basketball, and that never worked out. So I want to go and represent Canada at the Olympics in running, and I want to make this my career. So that's like kind of where my drive is. But where running helps me out, and like what I learned from it, is mostly just the self-reflection, and I learned more about myself, and it drew me into this big community, and it's allowed me to network better. And I have all these different connections that if I didn't have, I don't even know where I'd be. That's the thing. I haven't even thought about that other side of it. But what it has brought me is really rewarding, and that's what track has brought for me.
That's good. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I think they said it all. But yeah, track has just taught me like hard work and work ethic and being accountable, not quitting. Being a 400-meter runner, there is some absolutely grueling lactic training days, and I've sat on the track crying, complaining to my coach, asking if I can quit, and my coach knows me better than I know myself often, and not that I asked to quit all the time, but she's like, "No, you have it in you, you're gonna finish." And that feeling after, when you get through a gritty, bad training day and you push through and you persevere, it's amazing. It's a feeling when you've crushed a goal, when you've hit a new PB, ran a time that you wanted to in your head. It's just the most rewarding thing ever. And I'm very thankful for the sport. And also it's a great lifestyle that I live. Being a professional athlete definitely has its perks. Like I said, lots of yoga, lots of reading, training in the evenings. Yeah, it's awesome.
Totally. My first thought when I read that question was, there have been so many times when I've been late and running for the bus. I was thinking, like, thank goodness this is what I chose. I feel so lucky that I can run to this bus and make it. So many, many benefits to being a track athlete. We got one last question here before we close that just popped in. What are the key points that you should communicate to your sponsor when your season hasn't gone as well as planned? Oh, that's a good question. Do sponsors work with you to extend the relationship like hiccups happen with your year, like COVID?
I'll pop in. I think transparency and honesty is the best route to go, no matter what situation comes up, whether if events and your training is going well or if they're not going so well. A company that is representing you will want to work with you through any issue that you're dealing with. And I think that would be understood at the beginning of negotiations. And if a brand doesn't want to work with you through things, then the connection is probably not that strong, and there might be things better out there for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's such a good point too, on just like even the storytelling aspect, right? So having, the highs and the lows that kind of everyone has, it affords kind of an opportunity for you to communicate that with the brand. Your comeback is coming, things like that. And I think, so definitely always be transparent with those types of things.
People love a story. And I think the alternative is, like, most of the time there's an explanation, like you were hurt or something. If you say nothing, then no one knows what happened. So you get to own your story if you choose to share. All right, guys, we are out of time. I just wanted to say that we talked a lot about sponsorship tonight, about corporate sponsors, about like truly very elite athletes getting gear or financial support to achieve their dreams. But that doesn't apply to everyone, and that's okay. There are other ways to fund your track career. The biggest, best way to fund the early stages of your career for a lot of athletes is going to school. So this isn't a stay in school message necessarily, but being on a college team or a university team, perhaps earning a scholarship, or even if you're not, even if you're just, I don't know if they call them walk-ons in Canada, but even if you're just participating on the team, that likely pays for your coaching and your travel in season. And it's very, very doable to be a student and an athlete, very doable, especially in a sport like track. So that is a great way to start your career as a young developing athlete for a lot of your development years. And so that's such a gift that we have that as track athletes, because not every sport has that. You can also work. I think that sometimes athletes think that they can't hold a job if they're also trying to train really high, like at a high level. And it's true, like there is a balance, but working part-time is very compatible with training goals, and you can still certainly be very, very fast while working a job. Athletics Alberta has a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to add that like so many employers will be thrilled to employ a part-time, an athlete part-time. I work as a dental receptionist right now, and yeah, I just was on a 3-month hiatus.
Yeah.
I'm back for 2 weeks, and now I'm going again for a month, and they don't care. They're happy to have me.
People are shockingly supportive of athletes. It's amazing. We're so lucky. Alberta has a really great program called AADP. So you can apply, you get some funding. It's based on points, I believe, and performance at meets. Can Fund is really great. It supports higher level athletes, but again, it's an application process. You can work bingos in your club. A lot of people do that to support their track. It actually pays pretty well if you break it down per hour. That's all I've brainstormed. I don't know if you have any others to add, but if there's a will, there's a way is what I'm trying to get to. And then finally, guys, this is our last speaker series. So thank you so much for joining us for these. It's been great. If you liked them and you want to keep enriching yourself, we're not doing it anymore for a bit. We just thought it was really important to bring people together and get to chat and connect and bring in some Alberta-based athletes, because these are a lot of faces that you've seen before, and that's nice. And if you haven't met these athletes before, say hi next time you're at a meet or at the track and say, hey, I saw you on the speaker series. Thank you so much. Or I have a question, or my name is so-and-so. Do it. Like, we love chatting, you can tell. But I wanted to say that if you like learning in this sort of way, so we have CSI is the Canadian Sport Institute. There's locations all over Canada, and CSI Pacific, which is based in BC, has really, really, really good presentations that have been recorded. And to get to them, you just go to csipacific.ca or whatever it is, Google it, and then click programs, and then performance, public on demand, and then presentations. And they have presentations that are designed for athletes like you guys on everything from sponsorship. And there are like 10 different sponsorship ones on how to make a pitch, how to sell your story, how to public speak, to mental health, to mental training, to nutrition, to goal setting. Like, there is such a breadth of topics there. And so I think they're amazing resources. I've watched quite a few of them, and they're very, very good. So strongly encourage if you like this sort of learning. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our awesome panel. We really appreciate it.